We begin in South Carolina, where we are less than a week away from the Republican presidential primary. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is hitting the campaign trail to make her final pitch to voters. A recent CBS News poll shows former President Trump is far ahead of the former governor in her home state. The GOP frontrunner will be in the Palmetto State tomorrow. CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us now from Columbia, South Carolina. Caitlin, you spoke with Nikki Haley today. What did she tell you about the state of the race?
Hey, Nicole, good to be with you. As you mentioned, Nikki Haley is trailing by over 30 points in our polling and in other polls. And here in South Carolina, reporting on the ground for the past couple of weeks, it very much feels like Donald Trump's home turf. Nikki Haley acknowledges that this is acknowledges that she is not going to be able to win this state outright, perhaps, but wants to at least close the gap here and then move on through Super Tuesday. Take a listen to what she had to tell us. You have said that you want to be competitive here in South Carolina. What exactly does competitive look like?
Well, I think y'all will decide what's competitive, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, we want to close that gap. We want to make sure that we continue to show that there's a purpose there. And then, you know, we're going to keep on doing what we're doing. We've got people excited in South Carolina. They're ready to vote. They've already started early voting. We'll see what happens on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we're headed to Michigan.
Polls show about a 30% or 30-point difference here. How much do you need to close the gap?
I think you'll see us close it quite a bit. I mean, right now, the goal is everybody knows I was a good governor. Now we're showing them that I can be a good president. And so that's the point of the bus tour, is we're in all these small towns, we're in the big areas, we're in the small areas, and it's touching hands, it's answering questions, and it's reminding them, one, what we did in South Carolina and the fact that we could be that successful in America.
I want to ask you a little bit about that, because when we're here on the ground, our polling shows that people do approve of your job as governor, but they give Trump a higher approval as president, and that they're thinking about this race more nationally than they are locally here in South Carolina. What do you make of that, and why do you think that is?
Well, I think they should be thinking nationally. I mean, we've got big issues, you know, whether it's $34 trillion in debt, whether it's an open border, whether it's the fact that our kids aren't reading at a good level, you know, whether it's the fact that we've got wars around the world. These are big issues. But at the end of the day, the one thing we did in South Carolina was every crisis, every challenge, we didn't divide each other over it. We brought people in. We didn't cause chaos. We had sanity. And when you look at things that are happening, Republicans and Democrats have both gotten us into this debt situation. But also look at what America's telling you. 70% of Americans don't want to see a Trump-Biden rematch. 59% of Americans think Donald Trump's too old and Joe Biden's too old to be president. This is a time where we have watched Trump talk about anything from revenge after New Hampshire to being a victim after all of these court cases. He's going to be in a courtroom for the rest of this year. You can't win a general election if you're sitting in a courtroom. And every poll shows that.
So in order to win the nomination, you have to win some states. What exactly are you looking for as you head to Super Tuesday? What states do you think you can win?
We're playing all of them. You'll have, you know, after South Carolina, you're going to have another 20 states vote. But this is the fact that as much as everybody's wanting to say, but what will you do here? Only 3 states have voted. We don't anoint kings here. Let's let states vote. Let's let them go and decide what they want. If they're telling us 70% don't want a Trump-Biden rematch, let's listen to them and let them vote. That's what the people want. I'm fine doing the work. I don't mind taking the hits. I don't mind taking the bruises, because you have to do that. We can't keep living the same way that we are. It is not normal to have this kind of chaos in our country. It's not normal to have this kind of anger in our country. But then you look at the national security perspective, whether it's Russia, China, or Iran. You've got Russia now putting soldiers around the Baltic countries, and you've got Donald Trump saying that he would encourage Putin to invade those countries if they weren't pulling their weight. That's saying that Donald Trump's going to side with a thug as opposed to those countries that stood with us after 9/11. He's going to side with someone who kills his political opponents, who arrests American journalists and holds them hostage. That's not what we want. It's that chaos that's gotten us into the mess that we're in.
So, Nicole, with this huge uphill climb that Nikki Haley has in her home state and in the states after South Carolina, she is really kind of leaning into these criticisms against Donald Trump, mostly focused on the legal cases and on his approach and stance towards Russia. That has been kind of a key to her stump speech. But the legal proceedings are interesting because, as you know, Nicole, having covered this race as well, this was something that many of Donald Trump's rivals were cautious about criticizing him over the course of this campaign. And we saw, with each indictment, his base and Republicans kind of rallied around him. Now that she is the kind of the lone survivor of Trump's rivals, she's really taking this point to go after him on the court cases, arguing that he's going to be in the courtroom, not on the campaign trail. But so far, Nicole, that hasn't dented his support. In fact, supporters that we've talked to of Donald Trump at rallies here in South Carolina say that it's made them want to support him even more.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thanks so much. We'll see how things play out over the next couple of days. Former President Trump is using his legal battles in his pitch to voters. In Michigan over the weekend, the GOP frontrunner said that judges and prosecutors in his cases are, quote, nasty. CBS News campaign reporter Olivia Rinaldi joins us now. And Olivia, I want to talk about South Carolina in a moment, but first I just kind of want to start with the former president's latest Truth Social post. We saw him today for the first time weighing in on the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. He seems to be comparing himself to Navalny and references his current legal woes. He says the sudden death of Alexei Navalny has made me more and more aware of what is happening in our country. It is a slow, steady progression. I mean, what do you make of that?
I mean, it's his first time really publicly addressing the death of Alexei Navalny directly. On Friday, after the death of Navalny, he put out this statement. It was quite bland, saying that the destruction of the world is more dangerous due to President Joe Biden. But over the weekend, we had heard some chatter in conservative circles tying Trump to Navalny, that he, like Navalny, is a victim of the system, that he also is being politically persecuted. And really what this tells me is it's part of this broader effort that Donald Trump is using to tie Biden to his investigation, saying that they're politically motivated and that Biden is acting as if Putin would, like a dictator. Again, it's this victim mentality. He often says that Biden is a threat to democracy on the campaign trail.
And yet at the same time, not calling out Putin.
Exactly, not addressing Putin directly in any of these statements. We should also note that Biden has said repeatedly, and the DOJ has said repeatedly, that there's no coordination between the two on these investigations and trials into the former president.
And then obviously turning back domestically here, we just heard Caitlin's report. We know the former president will be in South Carolina tomorrow. What more can we expect from that visit? And why is he so far ahead of Nikki Haley in the polls when this is her home state?
I mean, Caitlin kind of nailed it there when she talked about these investigations into Trump, and especially with the trials. I was in Michigan over the weekend and talking with some voters, and they are equally as angry as Donald Trump is when it comes to these trials and the fines that he's supposed to pay. One of the people I spoke with said, "I see no fraud," directly mirroring things that Donald Trump has said. And the interesting part about that is that it's motivating for them. That's the challenge for Nikki Haley here. How do you make this argument that the courtroom is going to be part of the campaign trail when that is something that motivates voters in her home state? That's a really difficult barrier for her to try to overcome there.
And you talked about voters being angry about this, but we saw that the president got kind of a different reaction when he was in Pennsylvania this weekend at SneakerCon. It's this footwear conference. He was unveiling this new gold pair of Trump high tops. Let's take a listen to the reception that he got at that event.
There's a lot of emotion in this room. Thank you. Thank you. So nice. So the really nice thing is we have lines, and I want to thank Chase and I want to thank Alan, but we have lines going all around the block. They're going all around this block. They've never seen anything like this one.
So maybe a different kind of anger here and some cheers too, in addition to the boos. I mean, what happened at this event?
I mean, it was different than any campaign event I've ever seen before. Donald Trump said that he's always wanted to unveil sneakers and have a sneaker line. This was an interesting moment to do it, but part of this broader effort for Trump to do this, to go into a battleground state like Philadelphia and into a Democratic stronghold, or into a Democratic state, battleground state like Pennsylvania, Democratic stronghold like Philadelphia, is to reach out to younger and more diverse voters. Donald Trump has said multiple times on the campaign trail that he wants to make a dent into Black voters and get more of them onto his side. perhaps this was part of that broader effort to go to
So he thinks he can do
SneakerCon.
it by selling sneakers?
I think he does. I think he thinks that's the way in, is to perhaps appeal to a broader, more diverse crowd that way.
And I guess talk about the timing. I don't know if this was something that was always on his radar, or, I mean, this obviously came after that major legal judgment on Friday where, you know, his company and he himself will now face millions of dollars in penalties. I mean, was this always on the schedule?
It wasn't on our schedule, and it was something we were aware of that was coming up. It was announced on Thursday that perhaps he would be going to SneakerCon, and then he himself announced it right after the decision came down from the New York civil fraud trial case. The timing is interesting. It's a way for him to raise money. I mean, these sneakers are ranging from about $200 to $400. He even sold some of them that were signed for about $9,000. So all of this goes into his ability to pay these massive, massive fines that are now being weighed against him. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that he's going to have to pay in the coming months.
And I believe they sold out. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you so much.